What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. I am very excited for the show today for a whole myriad of reasons. One of them is because the person who I have on today had a television show for 6 seasons that I watched religiously. Yeah, I thought it was ahead of its time. It was like this pioneering kind of effort. And it was something that we created a drinking game out of it. And I don't even remember the rules of it. I think we just did it so we could get shit-faced. But it was one of those shows that I rank it in my top 5 of all-time Canadian television shows. He is also a musician. He is also a writer. And he likes to argue with people sometimes on the internet. And no one knows why. But his name is Spencer Rice, a.k.a. Spenny. Spenny, what's up, buddy?
James, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I just had lunch with Kenny's sister, who was in Kingston, where I live, and was a great singer. She lives in Dubai.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is she a model? I know that sounds weird because a lot of models move to Dubai for some reason.
No, she's beautiful, but no, her husband and she both have jobs in Dubai. Her husband's in animation. And she's in somehow. They have Tim Hortons in Dubai. And
I'm not surprised, I guess.
Yeah, I know. So anyways, it was nice seeing her, but I'm well.
If it was up to me, we would export all of the Tim Hortons to Dubai. I'm not a Tim Hortons guy. I don't know how our culture got so bastardized with that horrible coffee. I'm just
it's funny because we talked about it. She loves the coffee, and there was that rumor that they were putting nicotine in the coffee to addict people to it, which
I remember that
probably.
They said that they lined the cups, like there was a veneer of nicotine inside the cups, which was just as much sense as maybe this was actually true, that players' cigarettes had fiberglass filters. Was that true?
I heard that. I remember that one.
Like, and then what about the guy? Let's do a whole bunch of those urban myths. Did you ever hear about the cop that dipped his finger in the tub of liquid acid, licked his finger, and then he thought he was an orange for the rest of his life?
No. But I know the joke about the guy who goes into the doctor and his penis is orange. And the doctor says, well, what have you been doing? He's going, watching porn and eating cheesies. It's a stupid joke. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's funny because it's stupid, though. Listen, I've been doing this new thing before interviews lately. Yesterday, I had a guy on who is like one of the world's foremost like experts on urban warfare. Okay. And he wrote a book that he talked about the camaraderie of soldiers. And so I watched Hacksaw Ridge before I interviewed him. And I felt like it got me into the right sort of frame of mind. When we were talking about stuff that I knew absolutely nothing about, which is warfare. Before I interviewed you about 2 hours ago, and I'm not comparing you to this person per se or anything like that. It's not quite that literal. I watched the George Carlin documentary.
Yes, I haven't seen it yet.
And it is first of all, it's fabulous. It's such an amazing look at a person's life and how they can how sometimes when you reinvent yourself, what you're really doing is finding yourself because you weren't necessarily being yourself when you first got into the public eye. And I thought it was a good sort of prep run to interview you because I had a question that I've been wondering something since. I guess, what was it, 2003 that you went on air in Canada for Kenny versus Spenny?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, but I think it was. I think it was. My stellar research tells me that I think that's what your Wikipedia page said. So, but I was always curious when you did that show, how much of it was you just totally being yourself, and how much of it was you having to stay in a certain part of yourself when you were doing that show?
I would say the latter. What people don't really understand is that I knew who Kenny was. We'd been friends forever, right? And I knew he was a kind of Machiavellian kind of dude. and I knew that he would do anything not to lose to me on television, especially on television. So when we came up with the concept, and it was a bunch of different ideas that we had, and Will Smith actually had us move out to LA. Will Smith's company, Overbrook Entertainment. Oh, wow. And of the 4 ideas we had, they went for Kenny versus Spenny. So the reality was the only way the show could work and be real, and we decided early on, much to my chagrin, because I wish it was fake. I think we'd still be on the air if it was fake, but it wouldn't have been as good a show, which is Kenny's argument, which is legit. But basically, we each had our own production teams, right? He had a cameraman, a sound man, and what we called the unit coordinator. I had the same setup, and we'd shoot the show. So the only way to keep it real, because I knew Kenny was a cheater, and that's one of my biggest questions. How could you not know he would cheat? Of course I knew he would cheat. I didn't know how, because I wasn't present. I basically opted out of the production meetings intentionally, where he would discuss with even my my crew, what he was going to do. So really everybody, the producers, Kenny, his crew, my crew, they all knew what he was going to do except me. And it was the only really way to produce that show and make it somewhat a staircase farting, for 2 minutes straight. I had no idea that he blew air up his ass. And by the way, it wasn't a fart, it was a queef, but I don't want to get into the details of all that.
Don't you need a vagina to have a queef?
No. It's just simply air, right? I mean, perhaps, perhaps. Yeah, but, that's been my argument, as pathetic as it is. But anyways, so that it was keeping it as real as possible. Obviously, it was a TV show. We had about 3 days to shoot each episode. A lot of them were sort of, how long could you do something? So, they were very physically demanding in many ways. But that was, I think, the smartest thing we did was just keep me out of the production process so Kenny could plan to do that. And to your question, the sort of, yes, my job was to be me, basically.
Yeah.
I'm an honest, fair guy who doesn't cheat. So
speaking of that,
I spent the whole time thinking about how he was going to cheat, there wouldn't have been much of a show. So,
I found something that actually speaks to exactly what you just said. I'm just going to let it play because I have a whole bunch. I have some questions about this, and I want to move on because there's so much that I want to talk to you about. But here, I'm going to play this because it kind of speaks to what you just said.
Sure. Hi, and welcome to the Kenny versus Spenny website. My name's Spenny, and I'm here to tell you why I think I am going to beat Kenny in our many competitions that we have. First of all, I play by the rules. It's just the way games are meant to be played. If cheating was allowed, where would we be? In absolute chaos. As you all know by now, Kenny is a cheater, and you just can't win by cheating. It just can't be done. The other thing is, Kenny is extremely lazy. He sits around, he plays video games, he cuts corners, he does everything in his power not to work hard. I, on the other hand, I like to work hard. I believe in hard work. I think it's important. I like to go to experts, and they help prepare me for these competitions, and I think that gives me an advantage. I'm also in much better physical condition than Kenny. I exercise on a daily basis, and I think that really does give me an advantage, especially in the more physical competitions. Kenny may think he's smarter than me, but he isn't. He just says that he is, and we all know he's a liar. Lastly, I have the privilege of representing goodness, while Kenny represents evil. And I think we all know that at the end of the day, goodness triumphs over evil. I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and have a wonderful day, and God bless.
The God bless part gets me.
I haven't seen that. I don't know if I've ever seen it. That's from CBC, the old days.
Yeah, I got my Nardwar on for this interview, so I wanted to make sure that I did all the right research. Listen, like I know you've heard everything about that show, but like really what I loved about that show is that it was so easy for most, especially guys, I think, to identify with one or the other. Like if there were two types of individuals, you guys like represented those two types. And I was in college. Actually, I was out of college, but I was hanging out with a buddy that was just like you. Like he played his guitar all the time. He was when we went out, I was always like doing shit that caused attention. He was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like we went to New York City once, and it was just that the whole time we were there. We were like 20, and we snuck into Madison Square Garden, and he kept coming with me to do all this crazy shit, but he kept on expressing how he didn't want to, yet he was always coming with me, right? So it was like the neurotic guy and then the shit disturber. And you guys like that's every demographic for young men back then.
Yeah, except millions loved him and about 6 loved me. So and I that's like what I have become, and what I realize that I've become is a reverse heel. Heel is a wrestling term for the bad guy. And something happened in wrestling. I'm a big wrestling fan, or used to be, around, I want to say, the Attitude Era in WWE. I think then it was WWF. And the bad guys became the crowd favorite. And that's exactly what's happened with Kenny versus Spenny. And I have no problem with it. It just means that the more patronizing I am, the more, I'm good. I represent goodness. That just pisses these people off. And, fundamentally, when you're in show business, you're really looking for a reaction. I mean, that's really what you're looking for. And especially with comedy and what we were doing. So I embrace that completely. Listening to that and having maybe never seen it, I think it's something CBC made us do to define the characters. I agree with everything I said, except I'm wrong about that people will that I will win in the end. Clearly, I lost in the end. I was humiliated more than him. And there's something else in there I can't remember, but by and large, that's a pretty accurate description of my frame of mind going into the series.
It must have been really difficult to get insurance. Like, did you have to sign, like, how many waivers did you have to sign before each episode?
No, it wasn't really an issue. And I've said this, and God bless the CBC, even though we were only on there for 26 of the 100 odd episodes we did. They were really not around. I'll be honest with you. We in season 4 we were on Comedy Central, and we had a taste of the old American executive breathing down our back and legal and all that. I remember, but Canada, God bless us, they just sort of let us do our thing, and I think that was where we found our rhythm for the show. So I'm very grateful for their neglect.
There's an irony in that, though, because when you went to Comedy Network, weren't the South Park boys executive producers at that time for you?
Comedy Central. Yeah, they were. It's a famous-ish story within the Kenny Spenny community. What basically happened?
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. The Kenny Spenny community. There's a community, like
sure. Fans, whatever you want to call. Sure, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Listen, I'm down with that community.
People that are crazy for the show. Anyways, so what happened was we had heard rumors. Actually, Kenny heard rumors from a guy named Kyle McCulloch, who was Canadian, but he was a writer on South Park. So Kenny went to the Toronto Film Festival, a place I would never go unless I was forced by gunpoint. But anyway,
you had a short film there.
Oh yeah, I've had 2 films, I think, maybe 1 or 2, I can't remember. But the whole scene just nauseates me. Anyways.
Yeah.
So we heard Kenny's goes to a party and he meets Kyle, and Kyle says that the boys, meaning Matt and Trey, love Kenny versus Spenny, and neither of us believed them.
What an endorsement! Wow.
What
an endorsement!
Yeah, no, it was crazy. So, anyways, we never really believed it. We never thought it was true. And then I was traveling a lot on the red eye from Toronto to Los Angeles because I was living in LA and we sold the show in Canada. So I was going back and forth. I was married, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, try to make this short. So I go to the airport to do one of my flights, and this guy walks up to me who turns out to be Kyle McCulloch, who I didn't meet, Kenny met. And he goes, "Hey, Spenny," and he gives me a hug. He goes, "The boys are here." I go, "What boys?" Because I didn't know who he was. He goes, "Matt and Trey." I go, "The South Park guys." He goes, "Yeah, but they're up in the first class, lounge. I'm flying coach." Anyhow, they came down. They hugged me. It turned out to be true. They were fans of the show. They told me that they used our show when they had writer's block in the room and whatever. All this stuff, like, kind of blown away. And I'm not a huge South Park fan, but I have tremendous respect for them. Anyhow, so bottom line was we land in Toronto, and they were coming to Toronto because they had just released the puppet movie. What was that one? That was great. The Team America.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah,
amazing movie.
So
And it was a DVD release in Canada, so they came up for a party. Anyway, so we landed at the airport. The first thing I did was call Kenny. I go, "You're not going to believe this. That guy Kyle was telling you the truth. I'm with Matt and Trey right now." They gave me a lift back in their limo from the airport, and they were staying at the I don't know what that hotel is. It's a real trendy, nice hotel in Toronto. And I said, "Kenny, you got to come party with us." Anyways, I drank way too much that day. It was day drinking, no fucking food in me. And we ended up at the Drake Hotel, where I'll never go again as long as I live, for a number of reasons. And the bar there, I was thrown out. Kenny claims I was vomiting on the sidewalk. I don't believe that's true. And according to Kenny, and I remember arguing with them about Everybody Loves Raymond for some reason. I just remember that. And I thought they were kind of snobby, and it pissed me off. But anyways, So as legend has it, they just said, you guys are real, because they'd watched the show before. They thought it was an act. And we never want to see Spenny again, because he was
really?
Well, I was tipping tables. I was completely out of control. But they were absolutely egging me on, like 100%. Not them.
Yeah.
I can't remember. There was a guy, one of the characters on the show. He was there. His name is used on the show. I can't think of it right now.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so Kenny became friendly with them. He ended up writing on their show for a while. And, the reality is that Matt Stone specifically, he championed the show at Comedy Central. Comedy Central at the time was run by a guy named Doug Herzog, who was Canadian, who detested us because he thought we were just gross and not funny. But Matt, people don't realize that, but kind of Matt and Trey built Comedy Central. That was their first big hit show. So they have a lot of leverage there. And
Matt, them and the Daily Show, right? Those two were like,
I think they were even before the Daily Show, to be honest, but I'm not 100% sure. But sure, yeah. And then that's what happened. He went to bat for us, and he convinced them to do a season with us, which we did. We were shooting in Canada, and but we had all the executives on our ass from the U.S. and we had to recut the U.S. version to Canada's credit. Canada just aired whatever we did. The U.S. had lawyers and fucking, we can't do this. We got to do this. We got to beep this. Like, it was really a big deal to us. Anyways, it seemed like a big deal. And that was it. And we didn't. Doug made damn sure, because people don't really know the business. So that we weren't a Comedy Central show. We were a CBC show that Comedy Central picked up. Right.
Oh, okay.
Now, Sarah Silverman, The Daily Show, so on and so forth. Those are Comedy Central original shows. So they will put the lion's share of their promotion into their own shows. Right. And Doug didn't like us anyways, so they kept changing the time slot. It was we had the first time we aired in the States, we had a pretty decent number for a show that had no promotion, and then they kept changing the time slot. No one could find it, so we ended up doing only one season with them, which sucked. But
wasn't the show originally pitched for MTV?
We pitched MTV. I'll never forget that either. They had a thing called the Pitch-a-thon at the Blues. What's that bar? Dan Aykroyd.
That's a creative name.
Yeah, the Pitch-a-thon. It was the most intimidating thing. So Kenny and I, we really weren't show business guys. Like, we'd made a bunch of little movies at home. Like, no professionalism whatsoever. We just did our thing. And it was at the House of Blues. And it was literally a room where you walked in, and there was like 35 executives from MTV. Right. And keep in mind, Tom Green had already succeeded there. So it was like, oh, Canadians, maybe this will be good. And they gave us no money. So we had to do a slide presentation. We literally
PowerPoint.
I remember John Miller, who ran the network. He was the biggest guy there. Kenny remembers two things about him. One was that when he found out he was a guitar player, he asked to jam with me, and I said no. And Kenny almost killed me. Right? He said, "You just said no to the fucking guy." Anyways, and then John said right before we went into pitch, he said, "Go easy on the Jewish stuff. This is a young crowd, and we're old school fucking Marx Brothers guys, right?"
Yeah.
And Kenny was nervous, and the first thing he did when he opened the door into this room, he went, "Is this the Nussbaum Bar Mitzvah?" That was the first thing he said. Anyways, so that was it. But the reality is, thank God they didn't buy it, because they don't pay well, MTV. So
yeah, I heard that.
I shouldn't say that, because we would have been a lot more famous. And then, we ended up being picked up by Barry Diller's USA Network. We did a pilot for them, and they pulled the plug on it halfway through the pilot. They didn't understand what we were doing, right? Our show was based on us being ourselves and competing, where they saw it more like Spy versus Spy from Mag Magazine, where, if Kenny would get a pit bull, I'd get 2, and then he'd get 3. It just wasn't what we did.
They probably were looking for something, it sounds like anyways, that where the editing was all like jolt editing and stuff like that. But what was cool about your show, a bunch of things were cool about your show, obviously, but the one thing that I really enjoyed about the show is that you guys didn't bother cutting out the boom mic guy and stuff like that. And sometimes they would even like gag, like when Kenny shat on your cauliflower, you know what I mean? Like you had members of the crew that were almost throwing up, right? Like you can still smell it.
Well, we did the who could keep a poop in their diaper the longest, which is I want that to be an Olympic event. But so the whole set smelled awful. And when the camera wanders and you see the crew, they're all holding their nose or wearing masks. It was insane. I mean, it was just, the whole thing was insane. But we love it. We love the show. We're still working. I'm going out to Saskatchewan with Kenny in about a week and a half, and do our shtick live. It's not, we don't compete. We don't do the show, but we just be ourselves. It's been just a tremendous blessing. And
do you prepare for that sort of lifestyle? Or
Kenny's very improv guy, right? Yeah. And I'm a little bit more, I want to prepare. And he's a one-liner guy. He's really the funnier one of the two of us. I'm sort of the straight man. But we prepare like very marginally, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the shows are really, the live show is very unique. It's very funny. People love it. We've been doing it for almost 8 years now, live stuff all over Canada, Europe, the US a little. We're going to start doing the US more. So
I know what you mean by I always thought that you were funnier. I thought watching you become so neurotic and angry every episode was the greatest thing about the show. Like it was
more in the Woody Allen, Larry David school, and Kenny's more of the Groucho Marx school, which is fine. The thing is, we weren't put together for show business, right? We were friends. Our fathers were best friends. So right then and there, it was just a repartee that we had that was very real, because that's just who we were. And I think that the fans in retrospect really dug that they may not have known that, but you could feel there was a certain reality to our going back and forth with each other, because the reality was we had been bickering for 10 years before we were ever even an idea that we'd be on TV.
Were your dads, was there like a dominant and a submissive or whatever between your dads? Or
no, they went to U of T together. In those days, sort of Jews all knew Jews, and Kenny's family was from Hamilton. Jack, Kenny's father, was a lawyer, and my dad was in real estate. They just knew each other. I mean, there's a picture that we lost over the years, which is so sad, of them at like Wasaga Beach as teenagers trying to pick up kids together. I can't believe chicks together, kids. Oh my God,
Jesus Christ,
chicks. And it's so sad that we lost that picture. I remember I gave it to Kenny. He put it on his fridge in his old house on Heathdale, and we've never seen it since. I think I've got a picture of it, maybe a picture of a picture kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's really out of focus, but no, it's a very lucky. We're very lucky. I think we're good as well. Don't get me wrong, but just the way things happen, how we went to school together, because he's younger than I am. He's about 4 years younger than I am, maybe 5. But I was a musician, so I really wasn't. It was into the show business thing more than he was. Not, just like bars and playing music with bands and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember he wasn't that way. Like I had to, but I knew he was super funny and would be great. So, I kind of helped him. And then he just had an incredible knowledge of editing, of the cinematography. He was just very good at that stuff. But he wasn't an on-camera guy as much as I was. And but there you have it. We did the movie called Pitch, and the rest is history.
I want to talk about just one last thing so that I can segue into another topic that I want to talk to you about. You covered this on the Dean Blundell podcast. We were on the same podcast there a few weeks ago for like a second. And I think I don't think it was that podcast. I believe.
You know how I remembered you, James?
What?
Was
How's that?
because the look you have the Mad Dog Vachon look. You're skinnier and handsomer, but he had the goatee and the no hair. Anyways, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, we're us bald guys with beards. We always get stereotypes, so it's fine. I'll let it go. I'll let it slide this time.
Oh, Mad Dog Vachon. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Is he a wrestler?
Yeah, Montreal.
Yeah. I have a very my great grandfather used to sit in front of the TV with his wheelchair, and we would know that he was watching wrestling because we could hear this come from like the kid, and we would be like, Papa Nun is watching wrestling again because I'm Italian. Right?
Wrestling is just and the wrestlers don't get mad at me because I love you, but it's kind of the lowest rung of the show business ladder.
Well, it's the first soap opera for boys.
But when I say that, it's way more popular than I'll ever get. So it's not like I mean low in terms of popularity. People love wrestling, and it's $1 billion industry. So I'm not saying that.
Well, you know what else is more popular than you?
Everything.
Opiates. So it's not always a good thing, right? Like it's just, sometimes.
I know about that too, but anyways.
Yeah, so do I. Well, that's a good kind of like pre-segue to the segue, which is when I saw you on Dean's show, they played the clip of you, I think it was like an octopus or a squid on your head, and you were on LSD.
Yeah.
Now, I watched that and I was like, I felt like that was like, because I am an LSD veteran.
Okay.
And so I was like, listen, it's great content, but there's 30% of that is hamming it up a bit, wasn't it? A little bit?
Well, I mean, when you have an octopus on your head, you don't know that you're on LSD because he.
Yeah.
Right?
I would have killed him, by the way.
But I think one of the reasons he was okay with doing it to me, because he's not a horrible person, was because he knows how much acid I'd done in my life. Yeah. I have a lot to say about that drug in particular.
Can we talk about that? Because when the one thing that I remember, like I'm listening to you on Dean's show, and I was just like, why am I not on this show? And then I remembered, it's because there would be two people talking about their plethora of drug use over the years, and it wouldn't leave enough time for the other two to talk, right?
James Dean, I don't even know how he knows about my drug history, but that was him. He seemed very amused by talking about my drug use. I don't know why. I just don't give a shit.
I would like to take a more sophisticated path onto the drug talk because it's easy to talk about the slapsticky stuff. I have a whole bunch of funny stories about doing drugs, but the psychedelics are kind of near and dear to me because it's first of all, LSD and shrooms, same family as far as I'm concerned. They're not completely different. They're not exactly the same. But doing LSD or shrooms when I'm a teenager versus doing them now, it is a totally different experience. And it's because I think a maturity level. I do it now to reset. I do shrooms once a month. I take 6 grams of shrooms once a month to reset. I like to go to outer space. I don't like to take small doses. I like to take 6 grams, and then I go to outer space.
6
and then
grams? That's insane, James.
I did it on the podcast a couple of times on Dean's show. One time I was on with Our Lady Peace with Rain, and that didn't last long because I offended him, and so I got kicked off the show. And then the other time
I say to him, what happened?
Oh, he was it was when Biden and Trump were running for president, and it's a little foggy, but
let me just understand this. You're on copious amounts of mushrooms.
Correct.
Okay.
I powderize them and I put them in ice cream. That's how I eat them, right? Okay. And so it was just some offhanded comment about like I was sort of taking the road that like Trump is obviously a fucking moron and obviously I would vote for Biden, but Biden's not exactly a candidate that is like galvanizing the American public, right? And so he and then a couple minutes later he said something like, I remember when Obama ran and people had posters on their wall, and my son was like all over Obama, and then I said to him, just out of curiosity, does your son have any Biden posters on the wall? And then I got kicked off the show. I guess I said it like I was a real dick. But in any event, the idea of like shrooms now versus then is a totally different animal. And I think it's because when you're a teenager, you're just like, woo, you're just like that kind of, you want to be silly and crazy and funny and all that. But as I get older, I just kind of want to be introspective. I just kind of want to sit and think.
Sounds therapeutic. You're using it therapeutically. Yeah.
Yeah. So your experience, I don't know if you ever use drugs anymore. It's not really all that important if you do or don't, but I was curious to talk to you about this stuff. So,
let me just, as a blanket statement, say that for me personally, everything I'm going to say is about me personally. I'm not projecting on
no judges. No, it's okay. Yeah.
No, but I'm really talking for myself. I would probably not even do mushrooms now. I don't think they're the same acid. At least the acid I did was way stronger than any mushroom trip. I did once. I thought I was going to die on mushrooms because I ate so many, which is why I reacted to 6 grams that you ate. Because it's a poison, right? You realize that.
It's all poison, my friend. All of it.
Yeah. So, but anyways, we can go into that. But I think that my overall thing with drugs for me personally is that I was out of control for a long time. I did a lot of stupid things. And I am now much more of a wimp, you could say, and I have no problem admitting that. I don't want to be out of control, especially now with the family and kids. And I even took edibles, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, and I took too much. And I was at home alone with the kids, and it was just an awful experience for me. So
paranoid and everything.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But having said that, on the positive note, I do think, especially with psychedelics, it does let you see the world from a different perspective. And that, I think, is therapeutic and quite good. The problem is, I believe I'm an addict, not a full-blown addict. I think there's a spectrum. So my problem is that I'm sort of, it's difficult for me to have a good experience and not try to have a bigger one the next day or whatever. So, to everybody does that. The time, I had some bad acid trips, about 2 of them. One of them was back in the day. I don't know how old you are.
46.
Okay. So I'm considerably older than you, but back in the day, there was a thing called purple microdot acid, which we
I remember those.
Yeah. Okay, so that was supposedly filled with strychnine, which I've never even researched it because it sounds so horribly frightening.
That's another urban myth, because if it was rat poison doesn't make you trip.
Yeah. So the first really bad trip I had, and then I'll tell you about the good trips, but the first really, really bad trip I had was there was a show at the O'Keefe Center, which I don't think exists, the Hummingbird Center now maybe, or whatever it's called. Whatever
it's something else now, but yeah.
Yeah. They had I'm a big Beatles fan, and they had a thing called Beatlemania, which was a live sort of tribute to the Beatles, where they had guys that looked like them and could play like them. And I took two hits of what was called double barrel purple microdot.
Double barrel California Sunshine, double barrel purple.
Yeah, no, this was the purple mic. The California Sunshine was a different thing. Anyhow, for me anyways. So I went to that show with a friend of mine, and Act 2 was sort of the psychedelic act, and they had, I guess, what you'd call a transparent screen and all kinds of effects that were tailor-made for someone, who's on psychedelics, and I was. And I was fine. I totally enjoyed it. But we went home. I got on the subway, and my friend that I did it with said he had to go. So I couldn't.
The night took a turn.
Yeah, it took a real bad turn. And then when I got home, a girl I know had broken into my place. Just to get high and have a good time. And I literally had the experience that I'll never forget of being completely unable to function, talk, walk, do anything. And she laid with me, not in a sexual sense, just in a taking care of me sense. And I remember watching a test pattern on television for hours. And it was really scary, to be honest with you. I read The Politics of Ecstasy, Timothy Leary's book. I actually saw Timothy Leary live. I think that there's tremendous therapeutic usages. Now they do a thing called microdosing, which doesn't sound like you'd be interested in from everything you've said. So I don't want to put it down as a thing, but for me, I've had with the mushrooms, I was up in Georgian Bay and I ate a shitload of mushrooms. I don't know grammage how much I ate. And this had never happened to me before. I went to bed, had the greatest night of my life in terms of laughing and having fun. And then I went to bed in this cabin and I woke up just completely covered in sweat, to the point where the sheets had sweat marks around it, and it was a landlocked cottage. So in order for me to go to the hospital, which I seriously thought about doing, would have been to get in a boat, wake everybody up, and have the. So I wasn't.
I'd rather die.
Yeah, I'd rather die. Exactly. Yeah. And but I've had so many good experiences with the stuff, and I hesitate to say that because I don't want to encourage anybody to do it, because we're all different, our chemical makeups and what we can intellectually or mentally handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really need I wasn't trying. This isn't not an attempt to connect with you. Via our illicit drug use or to try to encourage you to do it or anything. I totally get what you're saying. Like, I feel like I'm an addict. I know that. Like, I don't drink anymore because I had a really bad alcohol problem for a lot of years, right? And where there's alcohol in my world, how did I used to say it? I'm like, yes, I would just follow the vodka river to Cocaine Valley, and that's always that was always my route. And
Coke is a very bad drug, in my opinion.
Oh my God, it's the devil. It is absolutely the devil, because you love it so much when you do that first line, and then nothing can recapture that euphoria or that dopamine rush. And then all of a sudden,
for me, it's different. For me, it's like, it's when I do it, or when I used to do it, I won't do it anymore. And now they've got that, what's it called? Fentanyl. So you don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Every bad decision I could possibly make.
Oh.
It would happen, and that goes with cigarettes and drinking. I would do everything. Just endless. I want more. Let's do more. And it reminds me of the ad during the Reagan era where they had it was an anti-cocaine commercial that was played in the United States, and it was a cage with a rat or a mouse in it, and it had that water thing with the little spigot that they go in and they put Coke in it, and then they did a time lapse of it trying it and going back and then going back and back and back, and then they sped it up. It was like a time lapse till it died. It was just covered in some wet fluid and died.
Cocaine and it's interesting because I've been and maybe it's because it's because I want to leave myself a little bit of an open window to escape sometimes. And so now it's really just shrooms and weed, and that is sort of like where I'm at now. And, there is the odd time where, like, I have a prescription to Adderall, which feels like recreational, but it feels like it's okay.
So you have an attention deficit?
I do. Like, I was diagnosed when I was like 34, but when you go through it's like 6 hours of like pretty intense sort of testing with a psychiatrist before you get any type of prescription for ADHD. And at the end of it, he looked at me. It was like, I think it was like 3 2-hour sessions or something like that. And then you have to do run on a treadmill to make sure that the legalized meth they're about to give you won't give you a heart attack and shit. But he looked at me and he was just like, how the fuck did none of your teachers take you aside and ask your parents to maybe check you out to make sure? And I'm like, I have no idea. Catholics, maybe? I don't know. It was a Catholic school. Maybe they didn't.
What is Adderall? Does it work for you? Tell me. I'd love to know what you
does. So before Adderall, I was known as a pacer. I would just pace. That's how I used to think. I've
got the shaky foot, so I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, I still have the shaky foot. I still pace, but only when I'm on the phone. But I used to for 15 hours a day pace. Think. I would have all these creative ideas. I've been a freelancer for 20 something years. And when I say freelancer, it means I couldn't hold a job, and sometimes I would sell a newspaper article. Right? That's what it was like for me. And then so I would be treading water all the time before the medication. And then when I quit drinking, I got a lot better productivity wise for my career, and I got more responsible. But then when I started taking the Adderall, it was like I just so much more productive. It's Wednesday. This is my 5th podcast this week. And it's because I want to work all the time. That's just what I want to do.
Are you a workaholic? So
I not until the last couple of years. No. I was a late bloomer. I didn't have the discipline, know? And so, but now, and to be honest with you, sometimes I still abuse it. Sometimes they give me my prescription is the maximum you can give a person. It's 60 milligrams of Adderall a day.
What happens when you take it? Do you get relaxed? Is that?
No. No. It's basically meth. That's what it is. Yeah, it's amphetamine.
I've done it once, but I don't think it did anything to me.
Oh, well,
Did
you
it
probably
said, yeah, I'll try it, kind of thing.
are you ADHD or anxiety and depression?
I've
No?
never been diagnosed. My wife will say I'm 100% at least ADD.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've never really looked at it. I guess the one thing that I've always thought with drugs in general, especially alcohol, is that my vanity has saved me, I think, from being,
Really?
because when I used to drink like a pig, and I used to, as you probably did too,
Yes, I did.
shots of Jack Daniels, beer, vodka, when I was a teenager and into my 20s, my face bloated out and I had bad skin from it. And that was fine for a while. And then I hated the way I looked so much
Yeah.
that when I realized it was the alcohol that was doing it. So, in many ways, I think, because I'd had a couple of hospitalizations from drinking too much, I think it might have saved my life, my vanity. I don't know. You never know, right? You just
That's an interesting thing to say. Like your vanity saved you. Like I can't think of another context where that would make sense. You know what I mean?
I know, but you have to have the vanity, and I got the vanity from my mother, right? She always was concerned about. She used to feel my nose to see if it was going to get as big as her brother's because we're Jews, and so I had all these trips on me,
Did you ever were you ever high during? This is probably going to sound funny because you were on acid once, but did you make a point of being inebriated for the show? Like when it had nothing to do with the plot of the episode?
When it had nothing to do with the plot, or when it had to do
when it
if
had
it
nothing
had nothing to do with the plot, generally not. No. It was a bit of a responsibility, right? Like you're given a lot of money, you're paid a lot of money. The budget for the show was, obviously nothing like a Hollywood budget, but it was, relatively speaking, a lot of money. And you had 3 days to do it. No, I didn't. I'm not a weed guy. I've never really been a weed guy. When I was a weed guy was back when I was in high school, and it was like Mexican weed.
Like the bricks, the flat bricks.
Awful. What?
Yeah, the flat bricks. You remember those? The flat bricks of weed.
No.
Oh yeah, that was the Mexican stuff, or the little cigarellos as well.
And then all these years later, and I really just wasn't. And it wasn't that I was against weed; it just didn't do it for me. So I'm on the road in L.A. Sorry, in Vancouver, and my promoter at the time said we're going to do a meet and greet at what they call those stores where they sell weed. What are they called?
Dispensaries.
Yeah, a dispensary. So my name's Spencer. Anyway, so I go there. Long story short, the guy douched me. They conned me into doing a dab, which I'd never even heard of, but it sounded like, oh, a dab, that can't be bad.
Yeah.
He gave me 2.5 grams. I was with the cave from the cave in like one with us. I should, as soon as I saw the acetylene torch, I should have ran for my life. But anyways, I was with the caveman who sort of took care of me. That's from the Trailer Park Boys, Sam Losco.
Yeah,
and he didn't douche me. The guy who owned the place douched me, but it was horrible. It was like being on that acid trip I had, where I couldn't move. I couldn't really. I was stuck in at the dispensary, the sort of waiting room. And I couldn't go anywhere, and everybody's taking pictures of me because I'm quote unquote a celebrity. It was a horrible experience. And then I remember that night I had a show where I had to play music, and I couldn't. There's no way. I can barely put a sentence together. So I walked out on stage, and I told my manager, I said, "What happens if I don't go?" He goes, "You won't get paid." I go, "Let's go." And I went out on stage, and I just told the story. And I'm pretty sure they enjoyed that more than me playing music. They would have if I played music.
Yeah, as a musician, you're more of a sober guy then. Like there are a couple of drinks, maybe.
I drink. I don't go to that place very rarely. Kenny and I we did a bunch of shows in the States, like I want to say less than a year ago, and I had a bad night. And my bad nights are usually I forget to eat and I drink like a pig, and then anything can happen. Anything. I'll say yes to pills, to powders, anything. And it was one of those nights, and Kenny basically said, "I'm not going to work with you anymore if you're like this," because he hadn't seen it in a while. It was bad. It was really bad. I assaulted a couple of people. I don't have a full memory of it, to be honest with you. But you just acknowledge that okay, this stuff's more powerful than I am, and I have to be careful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the amount, like, you drink less now than you used to, I'm imagining.
Oh
Then
my
you're more.
God,
Yeah.
yeah. I physically, James, I physically couldn't do what I used to do, which is
Oh, dude,
great. It's the
you
greatest
want to
thing
see what it
ever.
looked like when I was at my worst? This is me. I look like King Kong Bundy. Like
No, you
look at
don't.
that steak.
No, but
This,
look at the steak. I can't take my
yeah,
eyes.
I know. And that's an extra large
Where
Boogie
are
Down
you?
Production shirt. I'm in Oshawa. My friend Nigel, you know the band, the Pocket Dwellers?
No.
Remember them? Acid jazz hip hop band. Anyways, they're I was at his place, and I got home and I looked at that picture and I was just like, I am fucking hideous. Like I need
Oh,
to
I
figure
was
this
much.
shit out.
I was that. You looked a little like you had some weight on you, but I was like, I looked like Charlie Brown. When I was at my worst, my face was completely round. I had a rash all over my face, and I was drinking like a pig. I deserved it. Anyways, I mean, again, thank God that was what happened to me because that's what made me want to stop.
Did you ever have to go to rehab or anything?
Never.
No.
I went to AA once on my own because I couldn't tell my parents.
So did
And
I.
I get there and everybody starts sharing. And the first guy shares said that he was drunk and he basically killed 3 people in a car. And I went, okay, I don't think I belong here. God bless these people. And I know a lot of AA people from LA because I think, I don't know if I told you or Dean, but I used to work at a place called Investors Business Daily, which was it was basically a call center where you sold subscriptions to this investment paper. It was owned by a billionaire. But anyways, the human resources lady was AA and we're in LA. So everybody's like an actor, a director, a producer or whatever. So
Yeah.
the whole room, when it was a huge sales room, it was like maybe 150 addicts, right? That were,
Wow.
it was a great job and you could make a shitload of money. They changed the profit structure there. But at the time I got to meet some really interesting people. Look, I love addicts. I don't like them when they're in the throes of their addiction, but they're very interesting people and they have
Be-
great stories.
yeah, the rebound from addiction to whoever you become, that person, as long as their religious bent isn't too pronounced, like, is
Well,
usually a pretty cool
AA is a
person.
kind of religion when you think
Oh,
about
I
it.
went once, dude. I had the same experience as you, except I did a Hollywood line of cocaine just before I walked into the door to
Yeah.
get through it, and then they started holding hands and praying, and I'm just like, I'm out of here. I can't.
So I went to a few AA meetings in LA, and I'll tell you my favorite story, which was I go in, and I'm Canadian, and I notice one of the addicts there is Steve Jones, the guitar player from the Sex Pistols.
Hmm.
I'm like, no one knows who he is but me. I swear to God, because again, because we're Canadian, we get all the British stuff, right? And he had to go up and share. And he
Wow.
walked up, and I'm like in my head going, oh my God, that's Steve Jones. And he stands at a microphone and he looks at everybody. It was maybe his first time in AA. I don't know. And he goes, fuck off. He sat back down. And it was like the greatest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And no one knew how cool that was. But I swear to God, nobody knew that he was the guitar player for the Sex Pistols.
How long have you been like normal guy, where you're not excessing
I
with
wouldn't
the?
say I'm normal guy. Certainly my wife wouldn't. But, for years now, 2 decades maybe. I'm
Do you
60
ever?
years old. I'm 59. I'm going to be 60 in March. So I'm
What?
old. But yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I? Okay, that's a good time for me to like recycle this theory that I have. When we were young, like when we were like in high school, and I'm using the royal we,
Yeah.
I remember looking at pictures of people who were like 40, like
Yeah.
our friends' dads, and they looked like walruses with their fucking mustaches, and they had stubby Labatt 50 bottles, and they fat, and they looked like they were just decrepit and awful. And
So I used to dye my hair, right? I used to dye it like my old color, brown, dark brown.
okay, yeah. But
And
you
then
still
I
look
said,
good,
I'm not
dude. You
going to
look
dye
like
my hair anymore. I fucking hate doing it. And
yeah.
I'm white. I'm like Johnny Winter. I'm like fucking albino white, right?
You're like Eminem if he never rapped.
Maybe. I don't know what he looks like. So anyway, I know what he looks like, but I don't know what his hair is. So then I found this thing called camo. Redken makes it, and it sort of blends the white in.
I
But
think you and
so
Dean
I
might
know
be
what you mean.
using the
Like
same shit.
old guys looked old back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been the quality of the film.
No, it was. I think it's beauty products. It's being in better shape, eating better food. You know,
maybe. Yeah, it's strange because I don't know. Nowadays, it feels like the fashion, like everything just seems younger now. Like maybe we're all just like constantly living in a midlife crisis, and we just don't really realize
Don't get me started. You want to talk about drugs, fine, but don't get me started on today's world. It's a catastrophe. I believe that we're living in a catastrophe.
Do you think that we are living inside sort of like the apex of when we have to get our shit together, or else the tipping point is here? Is that the kind of?
It depends what you mean by the tipping point. I just see that I think that for me personally, when kids stopped reading and they started going on social media, it creates, because I am a believer that the brain is a muscle. It's not a belief, it's a fact. And that if you don't, and you're a writer, so you obviously read, but you know, once you lose that ability to have nuance and deepness in thought and be able to, you get exactly what we're seeing right now, and it's fucking terrible. I don't mind if I sound like an old douchebag.
No,
but
it's fine. Like, and there's young people. I talked to this. I guess he was like 22. He was a friend of my nephew's, like 5 years ago or something. And I was trying to explain to him something about how I felt it was valuable, and you'll know what I mean because like when we were brought up, being able to straddle the world and know what the world was like pre-internet and post-internet.
Yes.
And the vast difference between the two worlds.
Very
different. I think it helps us. I think it helps Generation X to navigate these waters because I feel like we remember, dude, I used to have arguments with my friends for like weeks because we were too lazy to go to the fucking library and look it up in an encyclopedia, that now we just have to like pick up our phone and look it up in 6 seconds. So we don't know how to think anymore, right? We only know how to look up.
But that's a good thing that you can do that, as far as I'm concerned. The bad thing is the realization that if you really want to understand things, you have to take in a shitload of information, right?
Yeah.
And even then, you might not come to any conclusion that's rational or smart. But I don't know. It was always reading for me, you know. Like, and I'm not a big reader anymore. I'm not going to ever pretend to be something I'm not.
I'm not either. You might be surprised to know. I think I get all my information auditory, and I read off a screen. But the tactile experience of a novel, I haven't done that.
But you read off of a screen. You probably read articles. Right?
I read articles and nonfiction. Yeah.
Right.
Basically.
So there you go. I'm a nonfiction guy as well. But I believe that that's a muscle. So if you go through, the school years and then into your 20s and you've never read a book or a long article, then you're never gonna. In my opinion, you're most likely never gonna. I'm not an expert. I don't pretend to be. But I know that reading for me, I was a very slow reader, which really fucking sucked for me because I wanted to read as much as I could possibly read. And I think I'm dyslexic, though I've never been diagnosed. And I know that from my writing, the mistakes that people catch in it. But anyways, it's just that's all it is. It's just, you have to, like when I'm on the internet, when we were doing the pre-show, when we were chatting and I was telling you about, responses to some of my tweets. I mean, to me, it's just like, oh my God, I can't even believe it. Like maybe they're trolls and bots and I'm an idiot for even thinking for a second it's representative. But what I see is a lot of people that are a lot younger than me who don't seem to understand history. I don't think they have a solid knowledge of history, which I think is very important. And I can tell that's an arrogant thing to say, but it looks like they've never really read books, nonfiction or fiction. I don't really care what it is.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think also and it's a mixture of that. I know this is going to sound like I'm a totally old man when I say this, but I don't know why, but I have a funny feeling that when we stopped teaching kids how to write cursive, that took away something. I don't know what.
I'm sure it did. I never thought of that, but yeah, you're probably right.
And also, I don't think our brains were meant to process the abundance of tragedies that we know about. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you. And that's something that the technology can do.
Yeah.
And television to a certain extent. I 100% agree with that. That there's so much information that that whoever created us or where we evolved, I don't fucking know, that our brain is not
like when you don't know what to cry,
which is probably the most important.
Yeah, when you don't know what to cry about, do you even cry anymore? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I cry very rarely, but I do cry.
Really? I don't know. I kind of pegged you as a crier a little bit. I don't know why.
No, a constant crier? No.
No, not a constant crier, but a person who doesn't mind once a week, maybe secretly, covertly shedding a tear in the bathroom and then wiping your face.
No, it's always situational.
I'm projecting.
Yeah, maybe. I'll tell you what. When I was younger, I noticed that I would cry from Hollywood movies that were, meant to make you cry. I would find that I could be very manipulated that way. So, but whatever. I mean, it's probably healthy to cry. I don't really know anything, but I think it's probably not a bad thing to do if you feel it, and certainly not to tap it down is probably a bad thing.
I can't believe I'm saying this because I don't think I've ever told anyone this before, and now I'm telling thousands of people. But since my kids have been with me, I always had this like weird like idea that I could have been an actor, but then I could never force myself to cry. And then I found out what actors do to make themselves cry,
right.
And I started doing it. And now I'm not going to do it now, but I can pretty much make myself cry like that.
I know the mechanics, and I can't do it because
really?
It's the same reason why I can't meditate. It's one of those things like when if I think about not sleeping, there's no chance I'll sleep. Like I have to, if I think about, you know what I mean? That's just me. But it's amazing the people that can do that.
But I don't know if I can do it in front of people. That's the weird part. Like I know I can do it. Like if I put down the computer right now and went outside just on the deck and like smoked a joint, it would take me about 12 seconds and I could literally have a river coming down my face.
Wow.
And then I would just wipe it off and be like on my way. But if there was a whole crew and a boom mic guy and everything standing in front of me,
that's showbiz, right? That's the business. You have to do that, right? With music, you have to, play well at that moment when you're live. But I hear what you're saying. I think I'm pretty blocked emotionally. My wife thinks I'm a sociopath. I don't think it's that bad, but I'm somewhat blocked emotionally, and I think it's for practical reasons, right? Like I want to be happy, I want to be.
Did you have a good childhood?
I had a very lucky childhood, but then some people who know my childhood would say that, you had material things, but there's other things that, my mom, she basically left when I was 13 years old and went to California, hooked up with an actor, left my father. And that probably hurt me more than I ever would admit to or realize. And I've been through therapy where I've cried about it. I think I do tap down, and I think most men do, to be honest.
Yeah.
Tap down the pain, and because who wants to deal with the pain? So a lot of people say, hey, you should be very angry at your mother. My mother, both my parents had challenges, addiction challenges, both of them. So I didn't really have a chance, to be honest with you, in terms of not being an addict. But they were good people. They were loving people. They were smart people. They were nice people. Yeah. So it's just in my heart not to be angry. Why would I want to be angry? It's like the people who you see them on documentaries sometimes where someone they know was murdered and they forgive the person that murdered them.
Yeah.
That's more me than.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand that. I still want to murder my stepmother, and she's, like, I'm serious. Like, I don't want to allegedly. No. What's that?
But you must understand it because it's just simply that you don't want to harbor that hate in your heart, right? You want to.
No, I always keep a little bit of my heart open for the hatred of my stepmom. A little bit.
That's what I mean.
She's a horrible human
being. I think most people are maybe like that. I don't know, but I'm more of where I see stories like that, I'm just completely impressed.
Yeah, I don't. There's something about Oprah Winfrey's message of, holding resentment against somebody is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. And I'm like, yeah, fuck off. Like it really, like some people deserve to be resented. I think,
No, and I don't think that's the point though. It's not whether they deserve to be. It's whether you deserve to have that in you.
Yeah. It's once you get to the point where like it stops eating you up inside, and then you can actually experience the joy of wanting your
No, I
stepmother
don't
dead?
know wait a second. I don't know what your stepmother did to you. My mother loved me
Oh, okay.
unconditionally. Like she
Yeah.
maybe left and she did things that hurt me indirectly. She was just trying to live her life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been very lucky. I was loved. I've never was hated. I was never told you're an idiot. I come from decent, nice people. They're challenged in their own ways, but who aren't we all? You know what I mean? When you think,
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, unlike the rest of my hometown, we'll get off my stepmother. And were you able to reconnect with your mom though after
oh
she
yeah,
left?
no. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I'm one of those, get a lemon, make lemonade. So she moved to LA
Mm-hmm.
and she left my dad for an actor named Jeff Cooper, who was from Hamilton, who was a movie star in Mexico and a model.
Yeah.
And he most famously, oddly enough, with all the shit he did,
I'm
was
picturing a neck scarf for some reason. I don't know why.
no. He was tattooed,
Oh
very,
wow.
very cut. Friends of David Carradine. That's how I knew David. Anyways, he became famous. Really, his most known role was playing Dr. Elby on Dallas, which was
Wow.
a character that basically hypnotized Sue Ellen to figure out who shot JR. So he was sort of,
Right.
and he did soap operas, and he was very good looking and a super nice guy. Uh, so so because of that, I grew up with privilege and money at the time. I don't have it anymore really, but I did then. So I would go to LA to be with her during Christmas, Easter, and sometimes the whole summer. Now,
Oh
all
wow.
of my friends, being Ontario boys, would go to cottages in Northern Ontario and whatnot.
Yeah.
I would get on a plane and go to LA, and being a showbiz freak, it was the greatest thing in the world. Like
Wow.
it was. And my mom had inherited money, so she lived very well there, and I would stay there with her and meet actors and go to NBC studios and experience LA, which no one my age was doing at the time. Right? They were all going to camps, Tamaqwas and Wahanawans, and
Yeah.
So again,
Tamagami.
it was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, sure. I was probably devastated that she left, but I got to go to LA almost 3 times a year, and it was incredible.
And okay, and you have 4 kids, right? How old are your kids now?
I have 2 kids in California.
Yeah.
They're estranged essentially, but I don't want to get into it. It's not
Okay.
because of them.
No, sorry.
And then I've got 2 children that I'm with, and my wife in Kingston, Ontario.
Awesome. And what are you working on now? You're doing like a tour with Kenny. You're going to Saskatchewan. Is there anything else that you're working on right now? You have you're doing a gig, right? It's coming up soon.
Yeah, we got Saskatchewan gigs, and then I've got a music gig that's just in a little bar here in Kingston, but I love that. I lost my YouTube channel. I had a YouTube channel, and I put a series that I did called X Rated for Super Channel on it, and without thinking that there was sexual content on there, so they toasted my YouTube channel. So I'm rebuilding that. I'm working with a producer named Derek Morningstar out of London, Ontario, and we're gonna, kind of do what you guys are doing, but I'll always be here for you guys because I love Dean and you guys are great.
Yeah. And you're writing for us now too. I saw.
I did
welcome
it.
To, welcome to Spenny's Center for Deprogramming Douche Nozzles.
Yes,
that's your inaugural piece for us, which is awesome, and that's you playing the guitar. You look kind of like Keith Richards there, but less drugs.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I want to look like him, but I certainly want to sound like him. Yeah. So I just, honestly, James, I love being creative. That's it. And any way I can be creative, if I can make a buck, fantastic. If I can, I'm going to do it anyways. That's been my whole life,
Well, listen, man, I've enjoyed your work. And it's not just Kenny and Spenny. I like watching you talk. I like, I like sort of sifting through the crates and YouTube and watching old interviews with you and clips and stuff like that. And I'm really happy that you're still, chugging along and doing creative stuff. And, I hope to have you on again soon, man. That was fun.
Oh, absolutely, James. Thank you so much. There's so much more to talk about. I appreciate the opportunity.
There is. I'll have you on soon. Thanks, Spenny.
All right. Bye-bye.
That is Spencer Rice, everybody, aka Spenny. That was fun. I could talk to that guy for hours. Like he's just, he's just so real. He's very authentic. And yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it. I think you guys liked it. Why wouldn't you like it? It's Spenny. He's dope. Tomorrow we have Karina Cohn on. Karina is a trans woman who has a not so typical gender activist view on women's spaces. And so we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation. I don't have anything booked for Friday yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. I still can't taste anything. The COVID is like, it is the shittiest illness, guys. I don't know who's had COVID, who's listening, but I've had it for just over a week now. And the first 4 days were awful. I'm not as bad as I were the first 4 days, clearly, but it just won't go away. You wake up and you think you're almost out of the woods. And as the day goes by, you're just like, ugh. And now I can't taste anything. So I'm just eating bread, water, things like that. Big shout out and big thanks to Spencer Rice, to Spenny for coming on the show today. And yeah, we're gonna see you tomorrow on Black. I'm just delaying here because I don't have my video up for my stupid intro because I had to take it down to put the Spenny thing up. And now I'm going through my computer trying to just sound natural, but I don't give a fuck. I'm sick. Okay, cool. So we'll see you tomorrow on Blackballed. Thanks, everybody.
Blackballed. 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 Black